Hello everyone, I've got Peter Barrett from Linnburn Station on the video, and many of you will have seen his article on Country Calendar on Sunday, the 19th of April, just passed. And what I thought I'd do is I'd ask Peter to cover some of the things that the Country Calendar article perhaps didn't get to touch, and so we'll get stuck into that straight away. Now, for anyone who's not fully up to speed on what regenerative agriculture is, because this is the subject that I'm discussing with Peter, then there are articles on our website, and there's certainly lots of articles on Peter's website that he'll tell you about shortly, where you can get a bit of a background, and also just going back and watching the TV1 art program on demand would also give you a bit of a background. But Peter, here's the first thing: how did you go about getting started in this business, and how would that help farmers in 2020 get started if they're interested?
Roads today is a bit different than when I started. There's definitely a lot more awareness of this type of farming, regenerative agriculture it's called today. When I started in 2014, it wasn't called regenerative agriculture. It was conservation agriculture or holistic farming, lots of terms like that. But there wasn't a lot of data around on it. There were some people that were really left field that written some books. How I got to this position is we as a farm had not really been maintaining a decent pasture renewal program. And so we had a lot of catch-up work to do. And so I was looking at how we were going to do that catch up, and I worked out pretty quickly that if I was going to do it conventionally, I was going to run out of money pretty quickly as well, from what I was learning with all the expenditure I had to do with synthetic fertilizers and cultivation. I got to a position where I found about no-tillage drilling systems in about 2014, and I was about to sign a contract to buy a drill. And I've been doing a little bit of research on the internet, and I found a guy, Gabe Brown, in North Dakota in USA. So I picked up the phone and spoke to him and talked about things. And you can see there his book. He wrote a book in the last year and a half called Dirt to Soil. But he's one of the champions, or I'd say the Yoda of what's called regenerative agriculture now. And he's got a great story of going to the wall and bringing it back from what he did. But I spoke to him and he said, I said, oh, I'm looking at getting this drill. He said, oh, it's a big bid, the drill, if I was getting it. But no, it would work really well. But what really resonated with me is he said, don't use synthetic fertilizer, don't do soil testing, don't get any of that information. Just focus on putting diverse mixes of seed in the ground and doing cover cropping and everything. And so off the back of that, I really didn't even know what cover cropping meant. And so I started doing some research and I started putting seed in the ground. Today, if I was having that same journey like people listening to this here, it's a lot easier to get educated, I guess you could say. There's a lot of content online. If you even go to the website, my website for Linnburn Station, what we've done is we've put a lot of information there on soil health, microbes, the information on regenerative agriculture, cover crops, how to get started, how weeds can help you, different books like Gabe's book, and Growing a Revolution by David Montgomery, In Half of Nature, When Weeds Talk. There's a lot of information in there that can help you. There's also another website I'm involved in which provides seed, and that's symbiosis.co.nz, and that has lots of really good information on what each cover crop is, how its roots are, when you can sow it, what sort of resource concerns it deals with, etc. And then outside of that, you've got lots and lots of information online on YouTube. There's regenerative podcasts and a lot of information. And so we're in a different environment now. There's an environment now with the internet where we can really self-educate really quickly. Country Calendar is the tip of the iceberg, but when you dive into the detail and start listening to different people, reading about the microbes, I think, is the key thing, and understanding the role they play and making sure you have life so you can cycle nutrients. That's the key thing. If you get that get an understanding of that, then you really understand that you really got to focus on make sure you maintain life.
Thank you, Peter. And your website, www.linnburnstation.co.nz, is the place to go. That's Linnburn with a double N, and I'll have it on the article too on our website. So that's a good spot to start. Thanks for that, Peter. You've done a lot of the taking a lot of the hard work out of getting started. That's amazing. One of the areas in the program which was very graphic was you guys spreading some dung beetles through some cow patties, and can you tell us a bit more about that? I mean, does New Zealand not have any native dung beetles?
I'm not an absolute expert on it, but from what I understand and what I do know from talking to the people that provide the product and reading online, dung beetles in New Zealand, I think there's about 14 species. They are in the trees and the forests, but they never have adapted to be able to receive dung of sheep and cattle. And so sheep and cattle, when they were, they brought up through nature and wherever they originated from originally, those places have dung beetles.
Yep.
And so when we bought the livestock here, we didn't bring the dung beetles with them. And so we didn't have that cycling of dung down into the soil profile.
Are they easy to get?
They are easy to get. Again, on my website at linnburnstation.co.nz, you go there, there's a page on dung beetles. Then got all the contacts on how to find them and buy them if you want to get them.
Yeah. I remember when I was in Zambia recently, watching a dung beetle roll a huge dung ball the size of an orange, about 20 times, 100 times its own size across the road. We stopped the truck and everyone had to get out and watch this dung beetle. It's against the law actually in Zambia, a lot of parts of Africa, to kill a dung beetle. You stop the truck if you see one, and you.
It's quite interesting. If you look at Egyptian society, they've got lots of drawings and what have you of dung beetles. So it's kind of interesting when you go back and look at that sort of thing. You have 3 different types. Okay, the one that's rolling it across the top is not the type that we're putting here. We're putting the ones that go subterranean.
Yeah. No, absolutely essential part of every farmer's stock.
Absolutely. Yeah. The only thing I would say, once you go there, you've got to change your animal health program. You can't be using a lot of the drenches and things that you do today.
You'd kill them.
What comes out the back end that kills them. So you've got to be really, really mindful of that. But when you buy them, what they do is the people you buy them from give you all the information and set you on the right path. No,
lovely. The other thing that the article didn't really go into very much was mob grazing. What's your brief impression of what a large mob can do, and how do you do it?
Well, mob grazing is something that I learned about maybe 2 or more years ago, but we really only adopted it here in Angra probably in the last 18 months. And what we're doing is we're mobbing up, up to 4,000 sheep or 300 cattle in mobs and moving them into paddocks for a very short amount of time, sometimes less than a day or a day. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to eat the top of a plant. So we're trying to go in with very good covers in a paddock where it can be 4,000 cover and you're going in for a day and just taking the top out. And the reason you have the mob pressure is then animals can't be too selective in what they eat. They've got to eat there and you get an even grazing. You take the carbohydrate out the top and then you're trampling a lot of the actual dry matter as well. So that's going back to feed the underground livestock, make sure the soil is protected, and then you're leaving still a third or of viewable green solar panel that then can photosynthesize and pump liquid carbon back into the ground. And so through doing that, then you got shorter recoveries as well on your pastures. What you're also doing is some people, like if you talk to Hamish Belsky, he's mobbing his whole farm up to have them in one mob, and he moves sheep, cattle, everything at one time. So they're only ever on, let's say, 5% of their farm at one time. And he's doing like 3-4 hour shifts. It's really intensive. And the reason you're doing that is you've got lots of hooves that are touching lots of spots on the ground for a very short amount of time, activating the life. And so you're activating life in plants because all the plants are getting bitten. And so all of a sudden when that happens, what they do is they photosynthesize more. It's like you, when you're injured, anyone's injured, then all of a sudden they're trying to fix themselves. So the body or the body of the plant goes to work on trying to repair itself and grow.
Good. Sounds good. I mean, I've got a client who has donkeys, Peter, and she reckons that donkeys have the same sort of stomach as the zebra. And the zebra has its special role on the savannas in Africa. They take out the type of grass that they like, and then the wildebeest come in after them and do the next job. And it's again, it's a little bit like the diversity of animals is something to look at, as well as having the diversity of grasses and diversity of microbes, diversity of dung beetles. Do you reckon we could get a mob of donkeys going through? I'm just not sure what we use the donkeys for, though.
Well, I think if you read Gabe Brown's book, you know, he looks at it and he's using hens, he's using pigs, he's using all sorts of things.
Goats.
And you creating revenue streams out of each of them, and each of them have a purpose to do different things. And so you're looking at your farm more as an ecosystem and how you can use different plants, different animals to be able to drive revenue and drive soil health and overall animal health. So like you say, diversity of plants, diversity of animals, diversity of everything, just like nature.
No, that's lovely. Just a couple more questions, Peter. The economics of it all. I mean, you're a big operation. You've got about 4,000 hectares under cultivation. There was a big rig you had on the TV. It looked like an expensive rig. But you mentioned at another stage that someone with 3 or 4 hectares could easily be trialing this sort of thing. So, yeah, how could a small operator achieve the kind of things you're achieving? And then just how significant are the economics of this when you're not paying for fertilizer and herbicides and pesticides and all the other paraphernalia that go with it?
I'll address the first question, the economics of the machinery. When I spoke to Gabe Brown, he said, well, that's a big bit of machinery and what have you. And he was saying, well, what you can do is you can get a smaller tractor with smaller drills as well. So people can get 750A John Deeres or any no-till drill. We also use here, we use a Duncan renovator in tight areas, and we tow that with a class, which is 130 horsepower tractor. So you don't need the big gear, but we use the cross lot because it can get through residue as well. So what I mean by residue is when if you saw the crimping roller, where we're flattening the vetch and all the other cover crop and then going in it, that's very good at actually allowing us to do that. But when we don't have that sort of residue, we're using Duncan renovators or drill, any drill like your local contractor has. So if you've got any sort of no-till drill or a tine drill, well, you can use that as well. And so you just need to come up with your max, put it in there, and do what you do, but just take away the cultivation. One of the key things that we really found is why we were really going to struggle is when it came to doing the cultivation and synthetic fertilizer. We were spending a lot of money. Now we don't spend that money. We put the money to seed and diversity of seed, and we trust those seeds to grow. And the reality is they don't all grow. But what happens is when you have a paddock that has different challenges from a mineral or element perspective, if you ever do soil testing, then what you're doing when you're putting diversity, then the biology in the ground is defining what seeds it needs to germinate. And they grow and they render different elements and minerals available to the biology and to rectify your soil health. Essentially, your biology is there selecting what needs to grow so that it can actually get your soil healthy and feed themselves.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Lovely.
So I'll make one more comment just on the drill. So what we've found is, you know, the cost of doing this can be about 25% to 33% off at an estimate, depending on what else you do per year of doing it conventionally when you're doing cultivation, post emergent sprays, along with synthetic fertilizers. So what we're doing is we take the fertilizer completely out. So it's really changes the dynamics.
Are you saying it's 25 to 30% cheaper than conventional?
No, cost off. If it costs you $100 to do a hectare, then it's costing you, let's say, $33 to do a hectare.
Oh, God heavens! Yeah, so you're saving $67. You're saving 2/3. It's costing you a third of what it would cost conventionally.
It costs you a third, and if you were to do you could do a little bit more. This is when you're spraying with a litre of glyphosate, a bit of fish, and a bit of fulvic acid, and then just drilling. And that's what we do here. We're not overcomplicating it. It's pretty straightforward and pretty quick. And we're trying to keep living roots in the ground.
You don't always use glyphosate, though, do you? Like we saw on the telly, how you had the roller out front and you're direct drilling into quite a lot of swath of cover.
Correct. In that example on the telly, what we were doing is we were flattening a cover crop with a crimping roller, terminating everything with that, and then drilling. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating a mulch. That's your site, those plants back into the ground. And it's like putting a mulch on your rose garden where you suppress weeds. But when you drill other things into it, what you find is everything comes through it. We also, out of a lot of times of the year, we won't use glyphosate depending on the paddock as well. So, but if we have grass, intensive ryegrass and clover, we will use a little bit of glyphosate to check it. Yeah, to take the grass out so we can establish everything. And I would recommend, we've got a lot of rocks. We trial everything you can possibly imagine, even when we're not trying to do it because of where we drive with the sprayer and the drill. Yeah. But what I would recommend if you're new to this and you're going to try it and you're going to take 5 hectares and do it, spray a litre of glyphosate with a litre of fulvic acid and some fish and 100 litres water and spray that and then drill straight afterwards.
Yep. No, great. And there was a good explanation too on the article about the kind of things you're putting on to the land as well. Just lastly, have you done any water absorption tests? Do you have any idea about how your land is hanging on to its water? Because you're pretty dry out there. What would be your average rainfall?
On a good year, an average year, they say it's about 350 mils. This year, we would have surpassed it just, and last year we did. 2 years before that, we had 170 mils, is what we had here. So we're very, very in challenged environment. But, water absorption and what have you, infiltration tests, like we get a bit of pipe and put the water in and what have you. We've tested that many times in different paddocks when we're going around doing VSAs and all that sort of thing. We've just done some paddocks, for example, this year where, we did try to do some infiltration tests in that paddock, and we knew that these are paddocks we've never done anything in. And you can go into those paddocks and you see thistles. So that tells you that there's compaction. And so when you do that, you're going to find the water hard to get in. But what we do is we then go into a set-up cover crop mix where we're putting sunflowers and, radish and lots of different things that open up the soil profile. And then you do the same test and the water goes in very quickly because you've got the residue of all these roots still in the ground. You can feel it in any country, dry land, under irrigation or anything. You don't even really need to do a water infiltration test. Just take your shovel. Take your shovel and try and put it in the ground beforehand. And then after you've done the crop it just slides in like a knife into butter. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Lucerne's always has been talked about for years as having that big taproot, and I know it grows up in your country as well. Is it part of your mix?
Absolutely, everywhere, underwater, under everything. But the key thing for us when we're doing it is you're not after these high performing lucernes. We're after stuff that actually has low dormancy. Low dormancy like that too. You don't want it growing all year. So then it allows other grasses to actually get established. So when you're looking at lucernes, that you're looking at low dormancy stuff that can deal with companion planting. And so the stuff we've been getting is very old varieties, stuff out of northern Canada and things that can deal with extreme climate changes.
Oh, God, amazing. No, lovely. So diversity is key to everything. And you're well on the way, Peter. It's very exciting to watch what you're doing over the next 5 or 10 years.
We're excited. We're excited on where we've come from, but we're by no means perfect. I got to say that we've done a lot, had a lot of learnings. We've had a lot of great successes, but we've had a lot of failures or things you could be disappointed in. But then it's trying to find out why we did that. So whenever we're doing things, I always use the analogy of trying to, if you're playing baseball, not that I'm a baseball player, but you're trying to get a hit to second base or get a home run, if you know what I'm saying. So you're trying to make sure you get a decent result. That's kind of the key thing. And so the big learnings for me through the whole thing has been about understanding what different plants do and when you should plant them and how you should use them and in what combinations. And so that's actually, if you look at the drought that's been in the North Island this year, it just shows you that really you've got to really think further than ryegrass and clover. You've got to have things that actually create shelter in a perennial establishment at the end of the day where they deal with, limited amounts of rain. And a lot of it comes down to grazing management with it. And so when it comes to that mob grazing we're talking about, plays a huge role in making sure you get the diversity of pastures to persist in your environment as well. You're going to eat it down to the boards, or you're not going to maintain the diversity.
Yeah. And Peter, you have some open homes or open farms where people can visit occasionally, once or twice a year, don't you?
Yeah, we've had a lot of trips, through the time we've been doing this. We just have probably done 40 different things where we've had people through, but a lot of them have just been with small groups. We had one recently where we had 200 people here turn up. That was in March, and we will be having another one next year where we'll get people along, get them to be able to have a look and show them. But one thing I would say is if anyone has any questions, is interested in learning more about it, go to our website, linnburnstation.co.nz, go to symbiosis.co.nz to learn about the different plants and what they do, or by all means get in contact, send us an email and ask questions.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, Peter. It's
no problem at all.
It's closer to midnight than it is to midday, but I chose a time where I thought a busy man like you would have a few spare moments. I really appreciate you giving us this time. Hang on for a second after we stop recording, just so I can say goodbye again. But thanks very much, and goodbye to everyone watching. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks very much, Rog. Thank you, everyone.